Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is January 23rd. The Yankees have re-signed Bellinger. The Mets stay busy. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? We are in the back half of the off season, and the dominoes continue to fall. A big week in the off season, some big trades around the league as well. Before that, just wanted to say apologies about the audio. We're trying something new here. The next couple of episodes may sound like this. We're going to see what we can do here, just playing around with some audio fixtures, but hopefully things are sounding okay. If there is any issues, apologies on that. Leave a comment down if you're watching the YouTube video or however. You can send a message to the middle of the order crew here and we can work on the audio. But for now, we're just testing some things out. So I want to give a heads up if the episode and following episodes sound a little bit off. Trying something a little bit different here. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the baseball from the week here. And we're starting off with the big news, and that is that Cody Bellinger has finally, yes, that's right, finally re-signed with the Yankees. It's a 5-year deal worth $162.5 million. And as the offseason went through, and teams were signing certain players, it just felt more and more likely that the Yankees were going to retain Bellinger. He was one of the top guys still available. The Yankees, one of those top teams usually that hadn't made a move yet or done anything crazy in the offseason. So you kind of just were wondering, it wasn't really a matter of if, it was more of a matter of when, and we finally now have that when here. Of course, Cody Bellinger was a living legend with the Dodgers, of course, the beginning of his career, Rookie of the Year winner in 2017. Those next 3 years, he was incredible, especially in 2019 when he won the MVP, was an All-Star for the second time, a Gold Glove winner, a Silver Slugger winner. He was phenomenal. COVID, bit of a bump for him, and then he came back cold. 2021 and 2022, two of the worst years of his career, but he has slowly bounced back after a stint with the Cubs. In 23, he had an 881 OPS, the highest OPS he had had since his MVP year, and played very strong. The following year, not as good, but still a pretty good year for Bellinger compared to 21 and 22. Of course, the Yankees then signed him on a 1-year deal for 2025. And last year, we saw maybe the best version of Bellinger we had seen since that MVP year in 2019. He had a 5.1 WAR, 160 hits, picked up 29 home runs, 98 RBIs, a 272 batting average, and 813 OPS. He finished 14th in MVP voting last year. And he's now back on that 5-year deal with the Yankees. And like I said, it kind of makes sense. It's a match made in heaven. The Yankees, by losing out on their corner outfield in Bellinger, we were like, oh, well, they could go and get one. And, there was guys available, still are, but it just made sense for Bellinger to come back. The Yankees, I think they had some quotes in there saying that we've given him this offer. We think it's a fair offer. If he wants to find somewhere else, by all means, like they weren't really kind of budging here. And I think it was about that 5-year 160 range. So whether he got an extra 2.5 or however the numbers shape up. But Bellinger, despite that down year in 21 and even a little bit in 22, he wasn't awful in 2022, but definitely, second worst year of his career. He's been around the league now 9 years in the big leagues, and he has a 30.5 career WAR. He has 225 home runs, over 1,000 hits, a batting average north of 250, an OPS above 800. Like, he still has been a very good, consistent ball player. Of course, we see him in the outfield, usually in left field, but he also has that versatility still to go play center, to go play right, to go play first, even. I mean, the Yankees could still go out, sign another outfielder, have an outfield of whoever they sign, Trent Grisham and Aaron Judge, and Bellinger can go and play first base. They don't really have a fit there yet either. So there are options that the Yankees can use with Bellinger. And I'm sure Yankees fans are happy. I mean, their offseason has been tragic. Is that the word I'd want to use? I don't know. The only player that they've gotten that's new to the team was Ryan Weathers. That was the guy they picked up from the Marlins in the trade. Everyone else, they've kind of just re-signed and re-gotten. It hasn't been, all that with like Cody Bellinger, now Trent Grisham, Ahmed Rosario, Blackburn, Yarbrough. Like those are all guys that were already on the team. They're just re-signing a bunch of guys that, didn't make it past the divisional round. So I mean, I think Yankees fans are still hoping for more, and trying to see, how they can improve the team. Because when you go around the AL East, I mean, Tampa Bay, yeah, maybe they're not contending like the likes of the other team. They have still gotten a lot better while still shaving off some key players. Baltimore has gotten much better. Blue Jays have spent a lot of money. They've gotten better. And Boston, despite losing Bregman, they've picked up some elite arms in the in the rotation. I mean, I think out of the five teams in the AL East, the Yankees are the least improved. And, we're coming up where we're a month now away from spring training. So it's, they're kind of on the clock here to kind of still make some big key moves. And there's not really any big key free agents left. I mean, when you go through the locket here, I mean, you want a starter. I mean, Zach Gallen's still an option for Amber Valdez. I mean, those are kind of two of the big ones here. There are still plenty of all around average everyday ball players that can fill a hole in the lineup and be some depth. Plenty of notable names, but yeah, if I'm the Yankees, I'm still expecting more. You can't really re-sign Bellinger and call it a day. Like I think, especially when you see what the Mets are doing, which we're about to talk about shortly here. You kind of want to see more from the Yankees and get more done. So that's where I'm at if I was a Yankees fan, if I was, wanting to get more from this team here. You're definitely going to need that. So, I'm sure they're happy. Don't get me wrong. Don't get that twisted. But, Yankees fans, they expect the best, and they haven't really gotten that yet. Unlike their little brothers, I guess you could say, the Mets, they have continued to have a crazy, crazy week. Of course, starting with the Bo Bichette news. This week, they made not one, but two big trades to help them out overall this season. And to be honest with you, if I was a Mets fan right now, I don't know what I'm feeling. This has been a crazy offseason. I think the Mets are the most changed team so far, and I think no matter what happens from this point on, I think they will win, the most changed team from last year to this year, which in tune is a good thing. You want to have, change when you have kind of a horrific collapse at the end of the season, really. But yeah, I don't know exactly what the Mets are thinking here. Mets fans, sound off if you guys are listening to this and watching this, whatever. The first big trade is that they acquired Luis Robert Jr. from the White Sox. They sent over Luis Angel Acuna and a prospect right-handed pitcher, Truman Pauly. So really quickly, we'll go through Acuna quick because he has been in the major leagues now for 2 years. More as depth piece and as well as like a little taste of the minors or the major, excuse me. The 23-year-old going to be 24 this year. He's played in 109 games with the Mets across the 2 seasons, ranging from the outfield, mostly in second base, but has done some short and third base as well. This year, he played 95 games. He had more of a bigger sample size than the 14 games he had in 2014. But what I will say is that he hit no home runs in the 95 games that he played. Meanwhile, he hit 3 home runs in the 14 games in 2014. His batting average was .234, which is pretty good, but his OPS was a .567. He had 41 hits, 7 doubles, and no triples, no home runs. So he was mostly just getting some singles, stealing some bases, picked up 16 stolen bases to the 1 caught stealing. So he is fast. He has a decent glove. But the value that he added to the Mets lineup batting wise was not really cutting it, especially when you take a look at now Robert's numbers, because I mean, his numbers are, I would say, a lot more supreme, even though we haven't really seen that, um, you know, potential that he once had. I mean, this guy, at the end of 2019, we were talking about this guy as like the next Mike Trout. And at the time, Mike Trout was still the number 1 player in baseball. Like Ohtani had been in the league, yes, but I would still say Trout was the number 1 player in baseball, despite Ohtani winning MVP in 2019. Trout was Mike Trout still. And when you give a kid, hey, this is Mike Trout, that's a big shoe to fill. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting with a Gold Glove. His numbers were great. He followed that back up with a 3.7 WAR in 2021, where he had a 946 OPS. And I'm thinking, wow, he really is like the next coming here. He only played in 68 games. He was hurt. 2022, he played in 98 games, was hurt again, but was pretty good. 2023, that was his year. I mean, you go through his 6 years so far with the White Sox. 23 was his best year. He had a 5.3 WAR, had 144 hits, 2 homers away from 40. He had 38, 264 batting average, and 857 OPS. A lot of career highs for him, including his first All-Star game, his first Silver Slugger, and finishing 12th in MVP voting. The last 2 years, however, have not been all that great. He has spent some time on the IL, but in total, he's played 210 games with about 80 to 90 hits in each season here. His numbers are eerily identical. He had 14 home runs both in 2024 and in 2025. 35 RBIs, 53 RBIs, so he was a little bit more, clutch, I guess you could say. He had more RBIs this year. But then again, you're on a White Sox team where there really isn't any crazy notable hitters. So, who else is going to be driving in the runs? Obviously, your star player. And yes, even with a 1.4 WAR and a 661 OPS, Luis Robert Jr. was still one of the top players in the White Sox organization last year, and one of the most well-known players for that organization. No longer the case now. Mets get a defensive upgrade. He has a great glove in defense. And even if his numbers stay somewhat similar to what they were this year and last year, I think the Mets still take that. I think it still is a slight improvement from Tyrone Taylor, who was listed as a center fielder before this. But even if he can tap into just half of what he was in 2023, I think the Mets are going to take that. I think their lineup is loaded already as is. And, Luis Robert Jr., yeah, he was batting third, batting second, batting fourth for the White Sox. He's going to be batting like sixth, maybe seventh even. And that's going to be a lot of pressure taken off his back. I think it might help him in the long run. I think not being the guy, might make him one of the guys. I mean, he's going to be batting behind guys like Bo Bichette, guys like Juan Soto, like Francisco Lindor. So, I mean, you put all those guys at the top, that relieves a lot of that pressure that I think Robert might have been kind of carrying with the White Sox now. And I think it's a good thing that he got out of there, obviously. It's tough to be on a team that's constantly losing no matter what you do. It's hard to play for that, especially if you have a championship mindset like some players do. And I think Robert could be one of those guys. So I think it is going to benefit him in the long run here. I think this is a great move for the Mets. And for the White Sox, I mean, you get Luis Angel, who, there's the potential there, of course, Acuna's brother. So obviously, when you think of the blood there, Acuna, at one point, one of the best players in baseball, still is, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's something to consider there. The other trade that the Mets made, and this one is a bit of more of a head scratcher, not by the Mets part, but by the Brewers part, because the Mets are trading for Freddy Peralta as well as Tobias Myers. In exchange, they're sending over Jet Williams, who is listed as MLB's number 30 overall prospect, as well as Brandon Sprout, who was the Mets' number 5 prospect. Starting with Sprout really quickly, we saw a small little sample size, a little taste of what he could maybe do this year. He pitched in 4 games for the Mets down the stretch. He had a 4.79 ERA, got through 20 and 2/3 innings with 18 hits, 11 earned runs, and 17 strikeouts. Like I said, a little taste. This isn't really a crazy sample size. His numbers in the minors are obviously a lot better. And, he'll probably work himself into the Brewers starting lineup at the start of the season, maybe, just a little bit into the season. When you look at Tobias Myers, I mean, this is a guy that for the Mets to grab even, it's a solid pickup. Myers is a young buck here. He's only 26 years old, going to be 27 this year. He's only been in 2 years in the big leagues. He's got a contract listed longevity-wise. In 2024, he started with the Brewers. He pitched in 27 games, made 25 starts, and he was brilliant, going 9-6 with a 3 ERA across 138 innings with 127 strikeouts. Last year, he got moved to the bullpen, still made a couple of starts, though in 22 games, he had 6 starts, a 3.55 ERA across 50 innings with 38 strikeouts. Interesting to see what the Mets will do with him, whether he'll come out of the bullpen or be used as a rotation arm. But I mean, across the small 2-year stint, 49 games, 31 starts, a 3.15 ERA. That's fantastic. His stuff looks nasty. The potential's there. So the Mets pick up a guy that has all this young potential. And then they also pick up a guy who is an ace. Freddy Peralta is an ace. He pitches like a dog. His stuff, I would say, is on par with some of the best in the game. I think Freddie at times can get a little unlucky. I think his stuff plays a lot better than what his numbers will suggest. But when you think of the Brewers, I mean, just a couple of years ago, they had Corbin Burnes, Brandon Woodruff, and Freddy Peralta. Freddy Peralta was the third guy on the Brewers, and I was already saying back then, he could have been the one on some teams, and I'm not just talking about teams like the White Sox and the Rockies. I was talking about some potential playoff rosters even. Like Freddy Peralta has been that. He has 2 All-Stars. Last year, he was so damn good. 17-6, a 2.7 ERA. And by the way, the guy stays healthy. 33 starts last year. He had 32 in 24, 30 in 2023. 3 straight seasons of 30 starts. He stays healthy. He finished 5th in Cy Young voting. Freddy Peralta is a dog. Last year was that first official taste of being the ace, and he did not disappoint. And yet somehow the Brewers, which finished in the NLCS, they got to the NLCS, was one of the final 4 teams in baseball, and they traded their ace away for a couple of guys who, yeah, maybe they have these crazy careers and these crazy bring-ups, and Brandon Sprout and Jet Williams are dogs, and we look back at this trade in a couple of years, and you know what, Brewers? You guys won the trade. Maybe that's the case. Freddy Peralta, of course, he's on his last year of his deal with the Brewers. Of course, they signed him to a big extension to get him through the arbitration phase. But this year, he's making what, 8-9 million? Like, that's the kind of deal that you have. How many ace pitchers, ace quality pitchers are making this much? Without even thinking and writing names down, I think I would throw Freddy Peralta in the top 20 pitchers in baseball right now. Maybe top 30. I'd have to really look at it. But off the top of my head, he is a dog. And out of all of those guys, when I think of the guys that are paid the lowest amounts, he's probably one of the bottom 5 of that top 30, let's say. Obviously a guy like Paul Skeens, who is making league minimum and bottom stuff, he obviously goes up there. But $8 million for a guy who finished 5th in Cy Young, a guy that had a 2.7 ERA, a guy that led this Brewers team to the NLCS. And obviously it's not just him, but you got to think with Milwaukee, what are you doing? We talked about the Brewers even earlier this offseason when they traded away Isaac Collins, who was so damn good for them last year. Not only did they trade him away, they traded away Nick Mears to get Angel Zerpa, who, I mean, for me, on paper-wise, isn't that kind of a crazy move? And I mean, now you lose Freddy Peralta, and I'm like, again, I look at this Brewers team, and there are names that I like about it, and I always give them like the shit end of the stick at the start of the season. I'm always saying the Brewers aren't gonna, be good when you think about it, and they always prove me wrong. But again, I just can't put my head on this trade and think, wow, the Brewers maybe can win this trade. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. But on paper, what I see from Freddie day in and day out, when I watch this guy pitch, he really is something special. I will say, and I'm going to shout out Chris Rose because he actually pointed it out. Freddy Peralta does not pitch long in games. If you want to go and find a negative about Freddy Peralta, that is the case. I said this guy stays healthy, makes 33, 32 starts. His innings, 176, 170. A guy that makes 30 starts usually can get over 200 innings. I clicked on his game logs. I was curious. Out of the 33 starts that he made, a career high in games at 33, a career high in innings at 176 and 2/3. So he had, again, a phenomenal year. How many games did he get above more than 6 innings? 2 games. He pitched only 2 games where he got into the 7th inning. And that was the 6th game of the season, his second start, where he went 8 innings against the Royals. And then one of the mid games, game 96, this would have been in June 13th against the Nationals. He pitched 6 2/3, got into the 7th, got 2 outs before getting pulled here. Every other start is 6 innings flat or lower, 6, 5 1/3, a lot of 5s, if I'm being honest with you. So, an ace, needs to get 6 at least, but also get some 7s, get some 8s. He only went past 6 twice of those 30 starts. And again, the Brewers obviously and managed by Pat Murphy, you can do something a little bit different because how good their lineup was. When you're ahead by 8 runs, you don't need, you want your starter to go lengthy, but their guys come through in the end. I mean, he had 17 wins, so he was pitching and holding runners. I mean, he pitched 50 something earned runs. Like, there was not a lot of runs going out. I think if you take away a couple of really tough starts for him, and I say really tough, I don't think he gave up more than 5 earned runs in a game. At most, I think it was 5, maybe once or twice, a couple 4s. But most of the time it's 1 earned run, 2 earned runs, no earned runs. So he was very dominant when he is pitching. The problem is he's not getting past that 6th inning all too often here. But that's not a problem for the Brewers anymore. It's a problem for the Mets to start working out, figuring out what they're exactly going to do with him. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if the Mets name him an opening day starter. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do here. Obviously, Cody Senga had a tough year, but he was kind of that guy. Nolan McLean, who's one of their young kids, he was one of the only pitchers actually pitching well towards that last month of the season. He was very impressive. He'll probably have a spot on the opening day roster, and at that point, what do you do with him? So there's interesting stuff there for the Mets, and I think you bring in Freddy Peralta, you bring in Luis Robert Jr., you've brought in Bo Bichette, you've traded away Nimmo for Simeon. They have done a lot of moves here. I'm going to be very interested with how this Mets team look in 2026. I mean, Bo Bichette, Jorge Polanco, Simeon, Robert, Freddy Peralta. They brought in Devin Williams. They brought in Luke Weaver. There's other names there too. Who they lost? Pete Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, Diaz, Edwin Diaz, Cedric Mullins, Tyler Rogers, Gregory Soto. A lot of really good players they've lost, but they've also brought in a lot of really good players. So it's going to be really interesting to watch the Mets in 2026. But I digress. That was kind of a lengthier segment here for the Mets. Freddy Peralta, Luis Robert Jr., of course, 2 big names here. But there were other trades that happened, including the Texas Rangers, as they've gone out to acquire the one-time All-Star MacKenzie Gore from the Washington Nationals for a slew of prospects from the Rangers' top 20, including starting pitcher Alejandro Rosario, first base / outfielder Abmalik Ortiz, outfielder Yerme Cabrera, infielder Devin Fitzgerald, and infielder Gavin Feen. All five of those were in the Rangers' top 20. I don't think any of them were in the top 10, but correct me if I am wrong. MacKenzie Gore, coming off I would say, tough year, even though he was an all-star for the Nationals, and it probably was one of his better seasons. The numbers just don't jump off the paper at you, but of course, you're on the Washington Nationals, who were really tough. You look at his year, I mean, a career high in WAR at 3. He had a 4.17 ERA, made 30 starts. He was healthy, 159 innings, 74 earned runs, 185 strikeouts. So the season was very impressive, but then obviously tail ends do tend to show. Records wise, 5-15. I know these days we don't pour too much into a record. But yeah, 5-15 isn't a great number. Of course, you go through his entire pedigree with the Nationals here. I mean, just tough. I mean, 4.15 ERA in the 89 starts that he had for the team. Through 462 innings, he has 517 strikeouts. At the beginning of the season, he was leading the league in strikeouts for, I think, maybe that first month, first 2 or 3 weeks there. He was very impressive at the start. And then obviously, as the season gets into it, players tend to get hot. And when you face the Nationals, even if you are the best pitcher on the Nationals, which I would say MacKenzie Gore was that, you're still going to get to him. You still got to beat the Nats because, good teams beat on the bad teams. That's just how it happens. And the Nationals were a bad team. And even the bright spots, such as James Wood, who had a very electric first half of the season, then eventually cooled off. Same thing with Dylan Cruz, except he wasn't electric at all until maybe the last, month of the season, if that. But yeah, MacKenzie Gore, of course, he was a big player to come over from the Padres to the Nationals in the Soto deal. That was kind of like one of the big names at the time, alongside C.J. Abrams, who, of course, is still there, as well as guys like Robert Hassel III and even James Wood. Who was part of that deal as well, except he was a little bit younger than MacKenzie Gore. He was like the name that's like, oh, you're ready to go right now in the major leagues. And he's really toned his stuff down. There's still that talent aspect that MacKenzie Gore brings. Of course, throughout the minors when he was getting, brought up, he was one of those top pitchers. His stuff was nasty. And we see his start sometimes, and sometimes he goes on a tear. He can wake up one day and decide that he wants to strike out 14 batters through 7 innings. He has done that. He can bring that level of junk and that level of dominance to the ballpark. But we also see sometimes that fastball can get flat. The slider ends up going nowhere. Gives up the home run ball from time to time. But at the end of the day, I think Texas, who is trying to kind of re-identify themselves. I mean, the Rangers are kind of one of these one-hit wonder teams, similar to the Nationals in 2019. We're only 2 or 3 years removed from the Texas Rangers when they won the World Series, their first ever World Series in 2023. And, I mean, how many guys are still on that team? Corey Seager and who? Off the top of my head, all the main guys. Marcus Semien was traded to the Mets. Adolis Garcia was non-tendered. Jonah Heim was non-tendered. Like, those, to me, were the guys that were doing it. Evan Carter, I mean, the young kid, what has he done since? It's really been a one-hit kind of wonder-ish team. So they're trying to re-identify themselves. They bring over MacKenzie Gore, who still has, a couple years on the contract left over in terms of team control here. So I think the Rangers are happy with, their pickup here, their trade. The 5 prospects. Yeah, it's kind of one of those you hope. If you're the Nationals, you hope to get lucky on 1 or 2 of them. Maybe you get lucky on all 5, and that's the best case scenario, that these all kind of become major league studs for the Nationals, and that could really help turn their franchise around. But of course, when I see these kind of deals with like one player who's been pretty good for this slew of prospects, I kind of think maybe there's one in there that will become a major leaguer, that will become like a mainstay kind of guy here. But maybe not. That's why you get 5 prospects, because you get a chance to gamble on a couple of them and see which ones kind of pan out in the long run. So if you're Texas, you get a starter who, got the talent. And if you're the Nationals, you get a slew of prospects, and you hope that you can hit on one of them. Moving on here, the Twins have made a couple of signings. Yes, they do actually want to bring in some players. Surprise, surprise, after that deadline last year. The first guy that they're bringing on is Victor Caratini. He's signing for 2 years worth $14 million. You can assume that Christian Vasquez, the veteran catcher who had been there for a while, you can assume he's probably not coming back, and Victor Caratini will be the the main catcher going forward. Caratini will be joining the Twins for his fifth team of his career. Of course, brought up with the Cubs, had a year in San Diego before a 2-year stint in Milwaukee, followed by a 2-year stint with the Astros, where, if we're being honest, he had some very good numbers. I mean, when you look at his entire career, his numbers the last 2 years have been some of the more eye-popping stuff, including 2024, where he had a 1.3 WAR, career high there, a 744 OPS, one of the best of his career. His numbers don't jump off at you. He's not a phenomenal player, and I mean, the Twins aren't going to be a phenomenal team. But he's a very likable guy. He's a very, pitcher first kind of guy. Similar vibes to like the Martin Maldonados and the Austin Hedges, except he can actually, hit a little bit more than those guys these days. He picked up a career high 12 home runs last year. Plus, he is a switch hitter. So there is, a lot of versatility that he can bring for a catcher there. So Caratini, he'll get a new home here. Twins are also bringing Taylor Rogers, of course, brother of Tyler Rogers. The one-time All-Star Taylor, his numbers obviously not as crazy dominant as Tyler's was. But Taylor has been a Twin. He's been a Twin for most of his career. Of course, debuted with them all the way back in 2016, 10 years ago. He spent 6 years in the Twins organization before starting to jump around from 2022, where he was with the Padres, traded to the Brewers, signed with the Giants, traded to the Reds, traded to the Cubs. Like, there's been a lot of move for Taylor Rogers, but he will be coming back to the Twins, the place he knows the best. This is kind of one of those nice signings. I think Twins fans are happy with it to have him back in. And I think it's something to go to the ballpark for, to watch your team. Obviously, that All-Star appearance in 2021, that was when he was with the Twins. That was the final year that he spent with Twins up until now in 2026, where he will be coming back to Minnesota. So some happy signings there for Minnesota fans. And it's going to be a tough year, I would say, overall. But at least you got Taylor Rogers and Moncada, Victor Caratini. The reason I almost said Yoan Moncada is because he's the next player that we are talking about, as the Los Angeles Angels have re-signed Yoan Moncada. The switch hitter, third baseman, is back with the Halos. It's a simple 1-year, $4 million deal. So another kind of just fill the hole with him. I mean, he was, I would say, pretty good. I think from what people were thinking that he was going to be last year, he kind of, outperformed some of those aspects. Again, wasn't crazy good, when you think of some of the elite players in the game. If you think about what he once was able to do when he was with the White Sox, he isn't that kind of player anymore. And to be honest with you, I don't think those kinds of numbers are still in the tank for a guy like Moncada. But the switch hitter could still go out and do it. He can still put up a couple of crazy numbers, a couple of crazy hits. He had 12 home runs last year. He had only 58 hits through 248 at-bats, had 84 games, did spend a little bit of it hurt. But 783 OPS, he had 13 doubles, 2 triples, and a 234 batting average. So he was putting up his numbers, 32 walks as well. So, didn't play a crazy amount. But when he was playing, there were good numbers for an Angels team. You think of the Angels, you think, I mean, that kind of slash line that he had last year is about what you get when you go see an Angels game. You're going to see them hit a little bit. There's some pop there, but overall, it's nothing too impressive. And I think that kind of sums up the Angels organization from time to time. Yoan Moncada will come back and spend a second year with the Halos in his 11th season in the big leagues. a simple deal there for him. And for the Angels, I'm sure both parties are happy with the move. Moving on here, let's get into what happened with Ha-Seong Kim and the Atlanta Braves. And I feel really bad for Ha-Seong Kim. Obviously didn't get to play a lot last year, only 48 games between his time with the Rays and Braves in his first year away from San Diego, of course, dealing with the injury. A lot of injuries, I would say, actually, last year. I really enjoyed watching this guy when he was with the Padres. I really like Ha-Seong Kim. I was really happy to see that the Braves re-signed him and were, going to be giving him his everyday shot out there at shortstop, I believe. But news came out. The Braves announced that he's going to miss 4 to 5 months as he tore his tendon in his right middle finger when he fell on some ice at home in South Korea, I believe. And that just sucks. It's you spend a whole season kind of hurt. You miss over 100 games. The last thing you want to do is have another season where you get hurt again. And just like that, before the season even starts, I mean, you're already limited to less than 60 games, not even. So that's really unfortunate for Kim. Hopefully a speedy recovery. Hopefully that timetable is able to be less than that, 2 to 3 months if all things go well. But I wouldn't expect to see Kim much this season, which does really suck, especially when you think of next season and the potential dangers of having a season next year. So the Braves, they quickly acted on this news and they went out to sign Jorge Mateo on a 1-year, $1 million deal. Nothing crazy there. Jorge Mateo, of course, kind of, elite prospect at one point. I wouldn't say top, but he was up there as like, this guy could maybe be a factor if he gets his bat figured out because he has all the speed in the world. Still is a pretty fast guy, nothing crazy, but he's never really been able to figure out the hitting aspect of baseball yet. At the major league level, of course, his numbers don't pop up at you at all. His 2022 season with Baltimore was his best season, very impressive, 150 games, 109 hits, had a surprising 13 home runs, 35 stolen bases. A lot of career highs for him that year. Last year with Baltimore, only got into about 42 games, only had 14 hits, 1 home run. He had a 177 batting average and a 483 OPS. Some of the worst numbers in his career. So the Braves going to be kind of giving him a shot, maybe filling in some depth overall. But we'll have to see how that goes for Mateo. But again, really unfortunate for Kim. Hopefully a speedy recovery, but Mateo will get some time because of it. So, I mean, it kind of works for him. Moving on here, we have a couple of players who will be no longer playing baseball. I think that's the new word for it these days. Ryan Pressly, he announced his retirement from baseball. And Rich Hill, on a podcast, he didn't use the word retirement, similar to what Joe Kelly did when he said that he's not retiring, but he is done playing baseball. Rich Hill's exact quote was saying that it doesn't seem to be, he said, I'm looking for open possibilities to stay in the game of baseball, but it's something that probably won't happen for him. So he's not planning on pitching, I guess is what you would say, Rich Hill, of course. And then Ryan Pressly, he actually did come out and say retired and done. So yeah, we'll talk about those two guys really quickly. Of course, Ryan Pressly, a 2-time All-Star, including a huge part in some of those Astros World Series runs in 2019 and 2021, where they made to the World Series both those years. Of course, he was not 21, 22 was the one. 21 was, who was in 21? Not important. Ryan Pressly, 2022 World Series champion with the Astros. He was a huge part in the Astros getting to the World Series in 2019. He spent the first 6 years of his career with Minnesota before getting traded to the Astros in 2018, where he became the closer. He was dominant. He's 5th all-time in postseason saves. He was huge for the Astros in that regards, and even very good for the Astros in the regular season, a 2.81 ERA with Houston across 342 games, where he made 111 saves of his career. Of course, things kind of changed when Josh Hader joined the Astros a couple years ago. He, said, hey, if you want to move me, go ahead. He had a non-trade clause, but he wanted to be the closer. They shipped him off to the Cubs last year, where in 44 games, he had a 4.35 ERA, only made 5 saves through 41 innings. Not a crazy year, and, it was going to be 37, was going to enter his 14th year. He says, I think I'm good with this, and has decided to call it a career. One of the guys that I loved watching pitch. I enjoyed Ryan Presley, and all the best to him in his retirement and his next steps of life here. Rich Hill, boy, oh boy, do you know Rich Hill? When he started pitching 2005, how many of us were not born at that time? I was, but was I conscious? Probably not. He spent his time, well, I'll just list all the teams, not in order, of course. Boston, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Guardians, the Pirates, the Rays, Baltimore, the Yankees, Oakland, the Mets, the Padres, the Twins, the Angels, the Royals. He has played across all of those teams, some different stints at a time. Came up with the Cubs in 2005. The longest that he spent was with Boston, 6 years. He had played with Boston in 2010, 11, and 12. He had a year with them in 2015. He had a year with them in 2022, and another year with them in 2024. And what I will say about Rich Hill is that he is a guy who will go down in history as a guy that went out and pitched. He gave it his all. His numbers don't jump out at you at all. The team's does, but he's got no awards, nothing to show, no World Series, no Gold Gloves, no Cy Youngs, no top finishes, nothing. But he went out there and he pitched with his heart. 16 career WAR points accumulated in his career, including 90 wins, a 4.02 ERA across 388 games, which 250 were starts. He has over 1,400 innings and over 1,400 strikeouts. He's an absolute dog. And by the way, he was 45 years old. He was going to be 46 this year if he does find a way to pitch. But again, he said he's not planning to pitch without using the word retirement, as that's kind of now become a trend, I guess you would say. I have no idea, but all the best to Rich Hill and Ryan Presley if this was the last year that we saw of them in the major leagues. Simple as that here. And that will bring us to now our final point and our final thing to discuss in today's episode, and that was the 2026 BBWAA Hall of Fame results have happened. The voters have voted, and here's what we can say. Congratulations to both Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones for becoming Hall of Fame members. They will join Jeff Kent as the 3 players in the 2026 Hall of Fame class. Carlos Beltran, his 4th year on the ballot, accumulated 358 votes, getting 84.2% of votes there. Andrew Jones on his 9th year, he was getting close there, but he's finally done it with 333 votes, getting 78.4% of the votes, both with elite careers. Now, have a Hall of Fame pedigree in it. I have an interest in Carlos Beltran a little bit because, of course, he was part of that Astros team in 2017. That was the last year he played Major League Baseball. And, he was going to be the Mets manager. That was kind of the whole thing. And then the stuff came out, and then AJ Hinch got suspended, and Beltran, if he was signed, was going to get suspended, and Gore got suspended. And then after that suspension, AJ Hinch came back with the Tigers. Cora went back with the Red Sox, but Beltran never ended up being the manager. So people, I was wondering how that might have affected anything. But it really didn't. It seemed like he is a Rookie of the Year, a 9-time All-Star. He was on that Astros team in 2017, so he does have that World Series ring. A 3-time Gold Glove winner, a 2-time Silver Slugger, as well as a Roberto Clemente Award. He's played 7 years with the Mets, 7 years with the Royals, 3 years with the Yankees, 2 with the Cardinals, 2 with the Astros, a year in Texas, and a year in the San Francisco with the Giants. In a 20-year career, debuting at 1998 and playing all the way to 2027, he accumulated 70 WAR, 2,586 games, 9,768 at-bats with 2,725 hits. He had 435 home runs, 312 stolen bases, a 279 batting average, and an 839 OPS. The guy was insane. Switch hitter. Congratulations, Carlos Beltran. Andrew Jones, on the other hand, is a 5-time All-Star. His defense was always immaculate, a 10-time Gold Glove winner. He had a Silver Slugger, just one in there. And he was, an everyday just stud, especially, defensive-wise. He spent 12 years with the Braves from 1996 when he debuted at the age of 19 all the way to 2007. And then those final 5 years, he had 2 years with the Yankees, a year with the White Sox, a year with the Rangers, and a year with the Dodgers overall. In a 17-year career, he accumulated 62.7 WAR with 7,599 at-bats, had 1,933 hits. Surprisingly, he had all the power in the world as well, 434 home runs. He had a 254 career batting average and an 823 career OPS. One of the best defenders in this game that we've ever seen, really. Congratulations, Andrew Jones and Carlos Beltran, on making it to the Hall of Fame. Of course, you needed 75% of the ballots, 75% of the votes to be elected into Cooperstown. They were the only 2 to get it. You need at least 5% to stay on the ballot. So a lot of, I think all but one of the first-year guys did not do that. Ryan Braun got 15 votes, 3.5%. He's off the ballot. Sin-Shu Chu got 3 votes for 0.7. He's gone. Edwin Encarnacion got 6 votes, 1.4%. He's off the ballot. Gio Gonzalez didn't get a single vote. Alex Gordon got 1 vote. Matt Kemp got 2 votes. Howie Kendrick, no votes. Nick Markakis, a vote. Daniel Murphy, no votes. Hunter Pence, 2 votes. Rick Porcello, 2 votes. All of those guys off the ballot. The only first year on the ballot player to accumulated more than 5% was Cole Hamels. He picked up 101 votes, 23.8% of the vote. So he will continue on to next year. Some other votes here. Bobby Abreu, 131, got 30.8%. Mark Burley in his 6th year, 85 votes, 20%. Felix Hernandez in his 2nd year, 196 votes. He got 46.1%. He could be a guy that maybe gets there one time. Torrey Hunter, 6th year, he accumulated 37 votes for an 8.7. Dustin Pedroia on his 2nd year, 88 votes for 20.7. Andy Pettit, 206 votes for 48.5%. Alex Rodriguez in his 5th year, 170, 40%. Guys like Jimmy Rollins, 108 votes. Chase Utley, 251 votes. Omar Vasquez, 78 votes. David Wright, 63 votes. So nothing, all that wow from some guys. And then Manny Ramirez is the other guy that we kind of just have to mention really quickly. He picked up 165 votes. That was 38.8% of the voting, but it was his 10th and final year. So he, despite, not having more than that 5%, he, it's only 10 years that you get on the ballot. So he's officially off the writer's ballot. So that is gone. So really tough stuff for him, unfortunately, but maybe he can still get it, some other way, the way that other players do once you get off the BBWAA. But yeah, that is the Hall of Fame voting there. Congratulations to the two guys. Unfortunate for many others, but hey, there's always next year if you got over that 5%. With all of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to the end of today's episode. Again, a bit of a lengthier one once again. But yeah, I appreciate all of you guys for sticking with me, sticking through this off season. We're getting closer and closer to spring training, the World Baseball Classic, and opening day. Again, apologies if this episode is a little bit different in terms of the audio, as well as a couple of future episodes. Hopefully, it's something that we can fix. Kind of working on trying to change the formula up a little bit. Just try to do as well as I can. Not sure if it's going to be better or worse or somewhere in between. But yeah, if there's any feedback you guys have for the audio, please feel free to let me know about it. And yeah, I'll probably make that announcement every other episode going forward for a little bit. But for now, I appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody, so much. And I will see you next time.